What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Mount MoGraph. In today's video, I am going to be showing you Summit 33 called Track Comp Win. Now, this is going to actually be an ongoing series on this channel called TCW, showing you how to put 3D objects into the environment with realistic reflections and all of that. So check this out, and then we'll jump into today's video, which actually will be very short and you'll learn a lot. Alright, so as you can see, we have a 3D object in this scene, which obviously was not really there, and there's one little glitch that I forgot to fix in this render that I'll actually be showing you how to fix. But as you can see, we have reflections of the environment onto our object. So this is going to be very cool, and the only thing you're going to need to do this video is Cinema 4D, R14 or later, so R15 also works, and also After Effects CS6 or later. So if you'd like to, in the video description, you can download this plate and follow along. And as you can see, we don't have a 3D object in this scene. So this is just some stock footage. It's 4 seconds long. I don't want to make like a really big download for us. But yeah, so let's jump into today's video. So I'm going to be using the Creative Cloud version of After Effects, but all you're going to have to do is go up into your workspace and change this to motion tracking. So we're pretty much set up, and this is going to be really quick. So first, let's import our footage. So I'm going to do Command-I on my keyboard, and just go over and select my raw plate that is in the video description and click open. So now I have my raw plate here. I'm going to right click it and just go to Interpret Footage Main and just take a look. And it's going to say 23.99 is the frames per second. I'm actually going to put this to 24 frames per second just because that'll be easier down the road. So I'm just going to place this raw plate into a new composition here, and now it's going to pop up into our window. So if I play it, pressing 0 on my keyboard, we'll see we have our footage playing. And this is going to be how we're going to track our footage, obviously. And we'll be able to do this right inside Adobe After Effects. So all we're going to do is right click our footage layer and go down to Track Camera. So let's click that button, and it's going to immediately pop up with this Analyze in Background Step 1 of 2. Now there are other settings you can change in the 3D camera tracker, but I'll be getting into those a little bit later in future videos. For this, honestly, the stock will just work great, and this should go pretty quick because it's just 98 frames. So it's going to solve the camera for us, and in just a second we will see all these little tracking points. So let's go ahead and just scroll through our timeline and see these little points pop up. So this has interpreted our footage for us and found all these surfaces. So I'm going to show you just real quick. If you click off your layer, you're not going to see your tracking points. If you click on your layer, you're not going to see your tracking points. If you want to see your tracking points, make sure in your effects controls you have the 3D camera tracker layer selected, and all your points will be visible. So basically, you're going to just think about where you want to put the object in this scene. Now for me, I'd like to place the object somewhere on this top portion right here. So I'm going to find a point. Just move your mouse around. You can either click and hold and just drag a selection around some points and figure it out, or you can just hold shift and select points, or you can just do the auto one and find a surface that you like. So as you move this around, you'll be able to see the target is changing perspectives based on it, like will triangulate the position, and just find a point that you like. So I'm thinking I'm going to put the object about here, and that surface seems to be pretty good, seems to line up pretty well with the scene. So what I'm going to do is right click and go to Set Ground Plane and Origin. And what this is going to do is put the floor of Cinema 4D and align it to this point. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to right click again and go down to, oh, I picked the wrong point. It doesn't have to be the same actually. So then I'm just going to maybe select this point right here and go to Create Solid and Camera. So what this is going to do is create a track solid and also our 3D camera tracker layer. And we'll be able to use this footage and import it into Cinema 4D. So as you can see, we now have a sticky note, is what I'm going to call it, just on our scene. So let's add another sticky note and just select our 3D camera tracker layer and just select another point just for reference. So I'm going to kind of like line it up with this hill here. So right click and go to Create Solid. And I like to use solids instead of nulls just because they're easier to see. And then I might put another one somewhere back over here just for perspectives purposes. And let's find another good point. This one looks pretty good. I'll right click and go to create solid, and we're all set up to interpret this footage into Cinema 4D. So let's go into our project layer and make sure you have your Summit 3 33 raw plate composition selected, and just go up into your file and go down to export. So if you you do have to have CS6 or lighter, like I said, and also I think you can actually use the light version of Cinema 4D, but I'm just going to click this Maxon Cinema 4D exporter. So click that, and it's going to ask you where you'd like to save this footage. So I'm going to call this project just track and save it to my desktop. So let's go over to my desktop and click this track project. So it's going to open up in Cinema 4D. I'll be using Studio R15. Yeah, I just love this software. It's really fun. And now if I play this video, we're going to see that our tracking points and also floor is set properly. So what we're going to first do is make sure you go to mode project and make sure your frames per second is set to 24, because remember, that's how we interpreted our footage inside After Effects. So now that we have this set up, what we're going to want to do is obviously add our video to this scene to see what's going on. So let's click into our object manager, go over to your environments over here, and select a background. So let's create a new material. So double click into your material manager, click your matte, and let's just call this video. So let's just turn off our specular layer because we don't need it. And in our color channel, let's go to texture, load image, and just go over to your desktop. So I'm going to just literally import this Summit 33 raw plate and click open. So this is going to open up in Cinema 4D. So click into your video here. Next, go to your animation tab and set this to simple, exact. I'm actually going to go to exact frame as the setting and click calculate. So as you can see, it says movie frame rate is interpreting it at 23 frames per second. Let's change this to 24. You're going to want to make sure you're having consistent settings, so that should work great. So let's close our material editor and just drag our video material onto our background. So immediately our scene is going to be in our project. Now if I play this video, our camera's still moving, but our scene is not. So let's change the setting. Double click onto your material you would put onto your background and go over to your editor tab. On your editor tab, click animate preview. And what this is going to do is play the video to the corresponding frame as we go through this project. So now when I click play, we'll see our sticky notes are now stuck onto the video. Fantastic. All right, so let's put an object in the scene and just get this done with real quick. So what I'm going to do is go up into my primitives and select a sphere. And as you can see, it's going to align itself right to the origin of our project like we set it to. So I'm just going to lift this up a little bit and press T on my keyboard to bring up my scale and scale this object up. Next, I'm going to click my sphere, go into my attribute manager, and turn my segments up to like 150. Actually, it probably doesn't need to be this high. Let's just set it to like 50. Next, go to your type and just do a hemisphere. And that's just a basic shape just to show the reflections of the scene. So if I do Command R on my keyboard to do a quick preview, this looks really horrible. It looks totally crappy 3D, something off the Sci-Fi Channel if you guys are familiar. So let's make this a little bit better. Let's create a new material. Click into that, and let's call this alien text for texture. So on your color channel, let's just add a simple noise. Click into your noise, go into your color one, and let's set this to a kind of dark gray. And on our second color, let's set this one to a kind of dark purple. And we'll just leave everything else at that setting. Go down into your reflection channel. Let's turn this on and turn our brightness down to 25. Next, go into your texture and set it to a Fresnel and set this also to 25. Let's grab our alien texture and put this onto our sphere. So now if I do Command R, it still is looking bad. So let's fix this again. Go up into your environment objects here, and let's grab a sky object. Right-click your sky object and go to Cinema 4D Tags, Compositing Tag. On your Compositing tag, let's click Scene by Camera so we can see our video again. This is a very powerful tag if you haven't used it before, and we'll be using it for a couple other things in this video. So now let me do Command R, and it's still not looking that good. So what we're going to do is duplicate our video channel here, drag it over here, and click into there, and we're going to call this Sky Texture. So we'd like to use this Sky Texture as the video as the light for our scene, so it looks like it's in the scene. So simply just drag your texture here, click and hold, and just drag this over to your luminance channel and drop it onto your texture. And turn on your luminance channel and turn off your color channel. So now what we're going to do is drag our sky texture onto our sky and do Command R. So now if we let the video play a little bit more, I'll actually probably scale up my sphere so it's bigger. If we let the video play more and scale forward, you can see we now have on the reflection the scene. Now, something to think about is, as you can see, the little tree here is the little tree here, and that's not cool. We don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do, I'll show you a quick example and then I'll show you why. So in your background, if you go down to your length and set it to -100, it's going to disappear, but I'll just move it over so we can see. I've now flipped the channel, so now the little tree's over here. So that's what we're going to be doing on the sky object. It's just going to be hard to see. So I'll do Command Z twice to just delete those changes so we have our background back here. Click into my sky channel on my material manager and go to Length U and set this to -100. And now when I do Command R, it's going to look like it's actually reflecting. So the tree here is actually over here now. So that looks great. All right, so let's do a little bit more. So in order to make objects look like they're in the scene, they obviously need a shadow. Otherwise, they're just floating around in space. So what I'm going to do is hold Alt and click my track solid, all my different track solids, just to hide them so we don't see them. And what we're going to now do is go and grab a plane. So our plane is going to pop up into our origin. So let's just press T and scale this object up. As you can see, this workflow is very easy, and I think it works great. So I'll do Command R, and now we have a plane on our scene. So this is going to be like our shadow mat or a shadow plate, and it's going to catch the shadows of our object. But obviously it pops up in the scene and we don't want that. So let's drag our video footage onto our plane here. And what we'll go do is click onto our texture tag on our plane, go down to projection and set this to frontal. So now the image is going to project itself forward towards wherever the camera is facing. So if I do Command R, now you'll see that the video frame lines up with the footage. But obviously it's a different color. So let's use our compositing tag again. Right click your plane, Cinema 4D tags, and go down to compositing. I'm going to set it to compositing background. So that means it's just going to act like a background object and not be affected by the light. So let's click that and do Command R, and now it's invisible. But we don't have a shadow. So let's add a light to our scene. Click on the light object, and what we're going to do is just drag this up above our sphere. Click into your light settings, go down to Type, Area, Shadow, Area, and let's just scale this up a little bit. Next, go into your light settings, your details, and let's go down a little bit and change our samples to 50 just to smooth out our shadows, and we'll change our fall off to inverse square physically accurate. So I'll just move this up until it's a little bit above the floor, do Command R on my keyboard, and now we're going to have this massive shadow that does not look very good, but it looks kind of realistic. So let's actually go into our light settings and change this to inverse square clamped, and just so we don't have such a glow on top of our object. Let's go to visibility and change a couple more settings. Our sample distance we're actually going to turn down maybe to 50, and our outer distance will also turn down quite a bit. Let's see, we have some more stuff to change. Go into your shadow settings and let's change our accuracy to 1, our minimum samples to 3, maximum samples to 350, and this is just going to smooth out some shadows. It's going to be hard to tell right now, but we'll still change some stuff. So I'm actually going to scale my light down, Command R, and next let's go and just turn our density down a little bit on our shadow because it's a little harsh. So we want to kind of still see the background. So that looks all right, but it doesn't seem to fit in the scene. So let's click out of our 3D camera tracker layer just by clicking this little square right here. And what we're now going to do is be able to move around our scene and see what's actually going on. So obviously the light is going to be coming when we're in our camera. Our light is going to be coming from like this side over here. So let's just align the light to where it would be in the environment. So I'm just going to move this, scale it down a little bit and move it over here. So it's kind of coming into the scene from an angle. Maybe lift it up. Let's see if this looks better. So I'll do Command R, and now it looks like it's kind of projecting the same way as the rest of our objects, but it is a little bit big, so maybe we should make our sphere smaller for this example. So I'll scale down my sphere a little bit, click my sphere, and also my plane, and my light, so I guess I'll select all three of these, and let's just position this a little bit different in the environment, so it's not going over this tree trunk here. Maybe move it again. And let's see how that is going. So that looks a little bit better. It's not perfect, but we'll fix it in just a second. So let me move this one more time. Something like right there. And that is almost perfect. I'm going to click out of my camera tracker and move my light just a little bit different. It wasn't quite catching where I wanted it to. So this is going to be what looks good to you, of course, but this is what I'll be doing for this example. So now I'll do Command R, and that looks pretty good to me. It's pretty lined up with the scene, and we'll be changing some more options down the road. So now that we have this, this sphere made, we need to make this a little bit more interesting. So it's in the scene. What we're going to want to do is add a cloner object to this, and I'll show you why in a second. Let's go to MoGraph, and holding Shift, select cloner, or actually, sorry, go to MoGraph, still with your sphere selected, hold Alt and click cloner. That'll make the sphere a child of our cloner. So let's turn our differences to 0 here. So it's just going to clone on top of itself, and let's turn our count up to 10. So right now we're not going to be able to see anything. It's basically 10 copies of the object inside of this one object. What we're going to want to do is, with your cloner selected, go up into your MoGraph module, effector, and go down to step. And what this means is every cloner of this, or count, is going to have a different setting on each of the different steps of it. So the first one would be different than the second one, then the third one, and so on. So let's go into our parameters and change some stuff. I don't want the scale to be increasing. I actually want it to be decreasing. So I'm going to drag this down. So each count is actually going to be minus 0.75 times smaller, so 3/4 smaller every one. Also in my rotation, let's do something. So I'm going to turn my parameters, I'm going to change this, and I'm just going to rotate it a little bit. So as you can see, actually what I'm going to do is delete this, this alien object just for a second. So just delete it so we can see what's going on. Actually, maybe I'll leave it on there. So Command R, and I might have to just rotate my cloner so we can see. As you can see, we have like a shell coming out of our object here. So that looks kind of cool, and it looks pretty realistic as well. Now, one of the things you'll notice, let me move my cloner over a little bit so the reflection catches better. You'll notice on this cloner is that we're actually getting the reflection of our plane on here, and we don't want that. So our plane's here, and it's actually showing up in the reflection, and this is something that was actually in this video, and I said I caught it kind of after the fact. As you can see, we have our plane stuck in this reflection, which does not look very realistic. So let's go back into this, and on our plane, go into your compositing tag, and obviously all we'll have to do is click Scene by Reflection. Just unclick this, and that should fix our problem. So now it's not visible in our reflections, just like we specified. So that's an easy way to just fix things, is the compositing tag. Okay, so let's see if this is looking good. It looks great. So let's add a little bit of an animation to this, and get this rolling. So I'm gonna just turn my parameters down, not quite so much. So maybe just to like 330. So we kind of have like a bug shell look to it, and that looks great. So let's go back to the beginning of our composition here. So to frame 0. And what I'm going to do on my cloner is just click this button for a keyframe and go forward. And on my cloner, I'm just going to go into my coordinates and change my parameter here to 360 so it does a full rotation. And hold Command and click this keyframe button. And now when I play this video, my object is going to spin. So that's looking pretty cool. Actually, what I'm going to do, I think it was turning the wrong way, is maybe go to the end keyframe and also just turn it just so we get a whole bunch of spins. I'll rotate it also on the H axis. So just click Command and make sure it doesn't turn yellow, and that looks good. So now what we're going to do is go and click our step effector, and on your effector, go down to strength and turn it to 0, and hold Command and click this button here, and that's at frame 0. Go forward to the end, and we're going to turn our strength up to 100. So that means that this effector is going to be going from the strength of 0, so these parameters will be affecting our object 0, and slowly turn up over time. So basically, this is our scene. So I'm kind of happy with this. I think this shadow is kind of catching at a funny angle, so I'm going to kind of cheat and just rotate this a little bit. So press R on your keyboard with your plane selected and just rotate it to fix it a little bit in the environment. It didn't line up perfectly, and kind of just get it to line up with the rest of the shadows. Obviously from this first perspective, it doesn't look too right, but yeah, that looks better. So just tweak it a little bit. Now what we're going to want to do for this scene is export this back to After Effects. So what we're going to do is first, we don't even want to see the video texture on our plane. So just press delete on this texture. And so this will actually show up as the rectangle again. And for our background, we don't have to worry about it. But for our sky, make sure this is set to scene by camera. That's correct. Now what we're going to want to do is click your cloner, right click it, Cinema 4D tags, compositing tag. Let's go over to our object buffer and click enable. And this is going to be a buffer 1. So what this is doing is adding a little tag that tells our render to buffer this object separately. And that is going to work out great. So basically our scene is set up. Now what we're going to do is go over to our render settings here and actually just change a couple things. So first I'm going to right click and go down to ambient occlusion and just keep that at the default. If you have the render, you can change it to physical. It'll work without the physical just fine. But let me do Command R, and now we're seeing our scene looks great. This is obviously not going to be there in our final, but it's going to work out great. So let's go into our output, make sure your frame range is set to all frames, and go over to your multipass. Click that on because we want to have multiple passes of this render. Right click and go down to object buffer. So just make your object buffer correspond to the group ID that we put on our cloner. So as you can see, this is set to object buffer 1. We need our group ID set to 1 for our object buffer in our multipass. Makes sense. Let's go on to our multipass, right click, and go down to shadow. So what this is saying is we want to also export all the shadows in our scene separately. So let's go back into our save options here. On our save options, let's pick our render settings. So first on my file here, I'm going to click in here and pick a location. I'm going to do Command D and bring it to my desktop and just create a new folder. So I'm going to call this track render. Alright, so I'm going to save this file as main underscore enter. And so what this is going to do is just save all our different images into image sequence. And also I want to click this alpha channel option so we don't see the background. Okay, so now let's save the multipass images. So this is saying we want to save these multipass options. So first let's unclick this multi-layer file. Since we're doing a video, we don't want all the different channels to be on one file. That'd be helpful if you're just going straight to Photoshop with an image, but we're not. So unclick this option, click into here, and what we're going to do on our track render is I'm going to save this as MP underscore for multipass underscore. And with this layer name as suffix selected, that's going to be like MP dash object buffer, MP dash shadow. So this is all set up. Fantastic. Now there is a compositing project file that you can save to After Effects, but it comes out as a .aec, which I've actually had problems with, so I don't ever bother with it. You can look into that more if you'd like, but it always messes up on me, so I don't even mess with it. So I'm just going to do Command S, make sure my file's saved. That's fine. And what I'm going to do is just click this render to picture viewer. So my picture viewer is up over here. Yours will probably be in a different location. And let's see if this is importing right. So right now it's actually not. And what I'm going to have to do here is fix this because something's exporting funny. So let me just stop this preview, click yes, and we're going to need to fix this. So what is showing up in our scene? Let's click into our sky, our background, right click your background, go to Cinema 4D tags, compositing, And on your compositing tag in your attribute managers, let's go over to our tag and set scene by camera. And now let's try this again. So I'm going to click to my picture viewer, say yes, that's fine. And now our scene is going to be fixed. I forgot to click that option, so make sure that is set. So as you can see, our scene is exporting, and this is going to render really quick. You know, as you can see, it's rendering like 1 frame a second. So I might even just keep this video rolling. I was going to pause it, but this is rendering out really quick. So what you're going to want to do is go over into your layer here and make sure that you're getting all these different passes. So you have your alpha, your buffer, and your shadow, and that'll mean you set up your multipass right. So I'll just go back and let this render out. Additionally, what you're going to want to do is take a look on your desktop, and for your track render, just take a look at this folder here, and make sure that you have all these different, and this is my folder here, it's saving us all these different files. So as you can see, we have MP shadow, MP object, and the main pass. So I'm just going to close this, and we'll just let this render out for another second. As you can see, this is rendering super quick, and this is the benefit of compositing 3D objects. It really takes no time at all, and you can get some really great effects. You know, like this is, I think this always looks better than like the Sci-Fi Channel, and I've got a lot of other cool stuff coming with this. Like you can add dynamics to your scene, you can add other objects. I just wanted to show you this Track Comp Win series as like an introduction course to making things that look really nice. So I hope you guys like it. If you have liked this video so far, have learned something, leave me a like or drop me a comment. I love hearing from you, and I'll keep the videos coming. And yeah, it's just gonna be another minute. Sorry to make you guys wait for this render, but yeah, it's like a minute, so it's not even really worth pausing. We're just about there. I only have 96 frames to render. So yeah, I do have some rigging videos coming soon. I always get sidetracked, and I'm trying to find a way to like mix everything together, you know, like show you the complete motion graphics world. I've been doing some After Effects stuff, some Cinema 4D stuff, some tracking stuff, and I think this is kind of like the first step to integrating it all together and making something awesome. So yeah. Just another second here, or it looks like we're now taking 2 seconds a frame, so this could potentially be another minute. So sorry for making you guys wait, but this is great to make sure that your render is looking the same as mine, or similar. Otherwise, you've messed something up horribly, and there's no going back. But yeah, I think these scenes look great, and especially when you have a very reflective object that kind of catches the background. You know, it just makes it look like it's actually in the scene than this really crappy 3D thing. So additionally, you could take like an HDR photo and just put it as your background. Like if you took an HDR of the scene, if you're like a professional, and that would make it look even more realistic. But for our purposes, we just flipped the video, and that'll kind of cheat the effect and save us time, and also the money of going to this random location in the desert and doing all that, because that'd probably cost thousands of dollars, which I don't think any of us want to spend on that kind of thing. Yeah. So this is basically how they did the Transformers movie. Now, normally I would use an application called PF Track for my tracking, but since a lot of people don't have that, and I'm trying to do these videos for you guys, I thought I'd use the 3D Tracker in After Effects for this effect. Okay, so our render is now complete. I'm just going to do Command S to save my Cinema 4D project, click out of there, and let's go back into our After Effects project. So in our After Effects project, we'll have these sticky notes still on our scene way back in the day. Let's delete our 3D camera layer and all of our sticky notes. So I'm just going to press delete. And now what we're going to want to do is do Command I to import footage. Let's go into our track render and just select our main. Now, as you can see, my option is going to pop up automatically to import as footage, and a TIFF sequence is what you want. And that means all the different objects with a corresponding name and just a different number are going to be imported together. So let's say open. And I'm going to import it as straight unmatted. And I'm going to click, just click OK. And now if I drag this main composition, or this sequence onto my summit, it doesn't look like it lines up right. So remember, this is supposed to be perfect, but this doesn't look like how the render did that we just did. So what this is, if you click your TIFF sequence, because it's like an image folder, it often interprets the footage wrong. So right click it, go down to interpret footage, main, click that, and as you can see, assume this frame rate is set to 30 frames per second. We had ours set to 24, so just change that to 24, click OK, and immediately our composition gets longer, and it now lines up to our scene. So that's nice. Now obviously we don't want to see this horrible rectangle in our scene. So let's do Command I and import our next thing, which is going to be our MP multipass object. So make sure it's set to Photoshop sequence in our case, say open. Now what we're going to do is grab our object 1 buffer above our main object here, go to our track matte settings and set it to a Luma matte. So now we once again have had the same problem where a Luma matte, it works for some of the scene, but it doesn't line up in time. So what we're going to do is click our right click our object 1 buffer, go down to interpret footage, main. Once again, it's assumed the frame rate of 30. We need to do 24. So I'm going to say OK, and immediately it will fix itself for our scene. And now we have our object floating around. Now one of the things is we're obviously not getting the shadow because we only set the object buffer to our cloner. So let's import our shadow. Right click, go to import, or you just can do Command I forgot that shortcut for a second, and just go down in your folder until you see your shadow. So make sure that's set to Photoshop sequence, footage, open. I'm going to assume it imported this wrong, so I'm going to right click, go to interpret footage, main, and as you can see, it also has thought this is 30 frames per second. I'm going to do 24, click OK, and drag the shadow layer underneath everything else because I want it to be behind our objects. So now it doesn't look right in our scene. So I'm going to go to my mode here and set my mode to multiply, and now it's in our scene. So this still doesn't look right, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit and try to just match the color tones to the rest of our scene. So first I'm going to go into my, actually what I'll do is probably just do my opacity. So press T on your keyboard and just turn your opacity. So this is helpful because now I'm able to tweak anything. Like you can export all kinds of different stuff, but I'm just going to keep it simple and just do a shadow pass for this first video. So I'm going to just turn my opacity down to maybe like 73 until we get some of the color tones back, and maybe go up into my effect right here, effect, and go down to what did I want? I wanted a fill. That would be under our here, let me change this real quick, my setting, change it to standard just for a second, and effects and presets, I want a fill, so I'm just going to type in fill and drag, oh it's under generate, I forgot where it was, and I'm just going to drag my fill color onto my shadow here. Actually that's not going to work. What did I do before? I'm kind of blanking on what I did actually. I matched the shadow color, but whatever, I'm just going to leave it. And just pretend it's perfect. Oh yeah, that's right. In Cinema 4D, on my shadow, in my light, if you go into your attributes, on your shadow color, I just changed this to a dark blue to match the scene. So like a midnight blue, and that'll match better. As you can see, the color tone's a little bit better. And that's what I did. I forgot to tell you guys that. But anyway, in no time at all, we have a very nice composited scene that is our 3D object floating in space. And it looks pretty cool. You know, I made my plane is a little bit the wrong size for this video, but overall this looks pretty cool. And yeah, so that's how you make this video. If you liked it, leave me a like, drop me a comment, and I got more to come. And for this footage, all I did was slow it down just to make it look more epic. And obviously you can do this with anything and get a very nice effect. So I hope you guys liked today's video. I've got more coming, so yeah, this was Matt from Mount MoGraph. Get your learn on. Peace out, guys.